I am Jaina Bosonko, and this is QTV News coming to you live from our studios on Caraba Avenue. Thanks for joining us. And now here are the main local, international and sports news headlines. 3 people have died and several others are hospitalized after a 15-meter truck loaded with goods fell on a 14-passenger van in Tallinding on Thursday night. Following Thursday's swearing-in, several National Assembly members who contested as independent candidates in the recently held parliamentary elections have vowed to represent the interests of their constituents and Gambian people. The Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs on Thursday organized a dialogue with stakeholders to present the details of the 2022 citizens' budget. As the Russia-Ukraine conflict continues unabated, we look at the Gambia's position at the UN General Assembly when nearly half of African countries voted against Russia's invasion, while a dozen others abstained. In international news, shortly before dawn today, Israel's security forces raided the Masjid al-Aqsa compound, causing damage and what the Palestinian Red Crescent Society says are over 150 injuries. In sports news, Real de Banjul consolidated their lead on top of the GFF League with a 2-1 win over Falcons on Thursday at the Independence Stadium in Bakau. Those were the main headlines, and now the news in detail. Do stay with us. Thank you for joining us. I am Jaina Bosonko and you're watching QTV News. Now, 3 people have died after a 15-meter long truck loaded with goods fell on a 14-passenger van on Thursday night in Tallinding on Westfield-Birkama Highway. Omar P. Jallo visited the scene and fastened this report.
The tragic accident happened at the buffer zone next to the Atlas petrol station. According to information received, the truck, which had a foreign number plate, left the port of Banjul loaded with detergent powder and heading to Guinea-Bissau. There were 9 passengers in the van when the heavily loaded truck overturned. The 3 passengers in the van are said to have died on the spot. The driver of the van and his apprentice and 4 passengers are admitted in hospital. The bodies have been taken to the mortuary at Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. Gumbo Gay, a supervisor of the Transport Union for Kanifing Municipality, Amadou Jallo, an eyewitness, and Biran Toure, the apprentice in the truck, all spoke to QTV. Immediately we heard the accident, we rushed there to help. We are expressing our condolences to the bereaved families. This was destined to happen, because no driver will wish this. But whatever God destines will happen. There is nothing we can do as human beings to prevent it from happening. The accident happened around 1 a.m. when I was in bed, but not yet asleep. When I heard the noise, I was among the first people to reach here. We found the truck lying on the van, covering it completely. Then we managed to remove the bags and pull out the people in the van. Unfortunately, 3 of them were already dead, and the rest were wounded. They are taken to the hospital. When we reached the place, some bags fell from the truck, and I climbed down and loaded them back on the truck. Immediately, I boarded the vehicle again, and we started moving. The truck turned over on its sides. Unfortunately, there was a van on the roadside, so it fell on the van, which was carrying passengers. That is when I last saw my boss, who was driving the truck. Suleiman Jammeh, the newly elected National Assembly member for Bundunkakunda, said it is an unfortunate incident because lives have been lost and others in a very serious condition in hospital at the moment.
What we can say here is to, show condolence and, and sympathy to the families affected in this accident and the owner of the product. That is.
For every life that is lost in road accident, at least 2 other relatives or dependents have their sources of deliberate taking away and dreams shattered. This accident follows another tragic accident at the Banjul port on Wednesday when a truck plunged into the sea, resulting to the death of the driver, whose body was removed from the truck after hours of searching by the rescue team. The driver was identified as Sambasen. Our roads are becoming death traps recently. It is a fact that road traffic accidents are a growing problem in the Gambia, and the alarming rate at which they are occurring has raised public concern, but so far little in the way of action. Reporting for QTV News, I am Omar P. Jallo.
Very unfortunate situation there. May their souls rest in perfect peace. Now, following Tuesday's swearing in, several National Assembly members who contested as independent candidates in the recently held parliamentary elections have vowed to represent the interests of their constituents and the Gambian people in the parliament. More in this report by QTV's Ansumana Isonyasi.
The recently held parliamentary election, Suleiman Jame and Abdullah Njai respectively vowed to serve as true representatives of their constituents.
For the interest of the constituency I come from and the Gambia in general. That one, because I think the expectations should be high. I know with Gambia, with the people of Bundung, because as you know me, I was the councillor of Bundung 6 Johnson Ward for 2 terms. So basically, I understand the people of Bundung, they have high regards for me, and they are expecting a lot of things from me. And I'm hopeful that I will definitely serve the interests of the people of Bundung.
They've chosen the right candidate. That all that we've been saying throughout the campaign, now it's time to work, and that we'll start to set up our committees, our working committees, and that we'll start working on our proposed agenda, taking them step by step, making sure we are on the ground with the with the electorates, making sure that we are on the ground to make sure that all their aspirations are met.
Meeting the expectations of constituents can be a daunting task, but the newly sworn-in Nam Fofonyi councillor Almame Jiba, also an independent candidate, promises to be a voice for his people in parliament. In addition, he says to have a vibrant parliament, Gambians must unite and prioritize the collective interest, especially when dealing with national issues.
Taking the oath now, the battle remains on us to make sure all bills and processes and procedures of the parliament is adhered to. The message that I have for my people is let's forget the past and walk towards this newly beginning that we have seen.
Meanwhile, the office of the clerk has announced that it has formally communicated to the National People's Party and the United Democratic Party to hold caucus meetings for the selection of parliamentary leaders such as the majority and minority leaders. After the IEC's confirmation that their respective parties have the highest and second largest numbers of seats in the National Assembly, these meetings are expected to be held on Tuesday, April 19th. Notwithstanding, the office of the clerk reveals it has been informed that the NPP has decided its leadership in parliament as follows: Honorable Bileji Tunkara, member for Kantora, as majority leader; Honorable Abdullah Sise, member for Olyundum, as deputy majority leader; Honorable Omar Dabo, member for Opanyomi, as chief whip. Ansmane Sonyasi for KTV News.
The Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs on Thursday organized a dialogue with stakeholders to present the details of the 2022 Citizens Budget to promote better understanding by the public. Omar P. Jallo again.
Is to give citizens the opportunity to be more involved in government's plans and budget processes. Each year, the government formulates, prepares and submits a budget in accordance with the relevant public finance management laws to the National Assembly for discussion, scrutiny and approval. The approved annual budget is normally long and complex. Therefore, a citizen's budget is prepared to present the annual government budget in simple and easily understood language to citizens. Julde Sisi, the Deputy Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, revealed that international good practices recommends governments to publish 8 budget documents at various points in the budget cycle as a guide to transparency. And key among these documents is the citizen budget, adding that since 2019, the Directorate of Budget at the Ministry of Finance has published this key information on the ministry website to enhance public finance governance.
The Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, in collaboration with the Accountant General's Department, has recently finalized updating the Integrated Financial Management Information System, known as IFMIS, by developing an improved budgeting model referred to as the Centralized Budgeting Management System, CBMS. The aim is to facilitate participatory budgeting through the better integration of development planning and the budget. This will also enhance the timely and quality production of financial and non-financial information reports as required by the international good practices.
Nana Taiba Chimbwa, the UNDP Deputy Resident Representative, says promoting citizens' participation is important to ensure people have a voice in decisions that affect their life and hold those making those decisions accountable. This improves service delivery and can transform people's life, especially among poor and disadvantaged communities.
For us at UNDP, we have long recognized and supported the importance of strengthening capacities of national institutions who are responsible for economic management, ensuring evidence-based policy and planning and budgeting to achieve inclusive growth and poverty reduction. This is why we are particularly proud that the Ministry continues to produce and issue citizen budgets and engages the citizenry to institutionalize the government's commitment to actively include the public in the country's development.
Michael Jelinek, a senior public sector specialist, says Gambians knowing how public funds will be managed and spent will help them understand how their needs and aspirations will be met. This, he says, will help improve performance, accountability and social justice.
Fiscal transparency is very important in countries as it informs citizens of how government revenues and tax expenditures are being allocated, how they're being spent, and how they're driving outcomes in key service delivery sectors.
As citizens are the main beneficiaries of government budget, it is important they have a say and a thorough understanding of the national budget to encourage their active participation in the processes of budget formulation, execution and monitoring. The 2022 government budget shows an overall budget deficit of $2.2 billion. This is expected to increase due to a significant decline in the expected $12.2 billion donor funds, accounting for 41% of the national budget, because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. Reporting for QTV News, I am Omar P. Jallo.
From that story by Omar P. Jallo on the 2022 Citizens Budget, we will now go for a short commercial break, and when we come back, we have some more local, international and sports news. Do stay tuned.
Looking for the fastest and easiest way to receive money transfers from abroad? Well, QMoney and RIA just made it happen. Now you can receive international money transfer from RIA directly into your QMoney account with no additional cost. Once you receive an SMS alert about your transfer, walk into any QMoney agent across the country to receive your payment for free, or use the money immediately to buy credit, QPower and other QMoney services. It's fast, safe and convenient. For more info, call customer care on 133. QMoney, Sunu Calpe. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. If you're just tuning in, this is QTV News and I am Jenna Bosonko. Now, as the Russia-Ukraine conflict continues unabated, African countries are divided on the global response to the crisis. This was witnessed at the UN General Assembly when nearly half of African countries voted against Russia's invasion of Ukraine, while a dozen others abstained from the voting. QTV's Momodu Lamin Choi reports on the Gambia's position at the UN General Assembly as manifested in its voting pattern.
The Russia-Ukraine conflict intensifies with the global response being inspired by geopolitical factors. On the eve of and during the war, much of Western Europe and the US have been united, slamming Russia with various kinds of sanctions almost every week. In Africa, the response has been rather different. On March 2nd, a week after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the UN voted on a resolution to condemn Russia's action. 141 countries, including the Gambia, voted for the resolution. More than half of the African countries voted against Russia. 49% abstained, including Algeria, Angola, and South Africa. Eritrea was the only African country to vote against the resolution. This vote, for the first time, revealed the Gambia's position on a war which involves two of its friends in the diplomatic world. Until the conflict, at least 48 Gambian students were pursuing their studies in Ukraine, many of whom are on scholarships by the host country. Diplomatic efforts by the Gambia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs facilitated the evacuation of most of the students. In another move to punish Russia's action, the UN General Assembly passed a resolution to suspend Russia from the United Nations Human Rights Council. In a rather unexpected turn of events and a sign of inconsistency, the Gambia, this time, abstained from the vote to suspend Russia from the UN Human Rights Council. Gambia's position is like that of Nigeria, which voted for the UN resolution to condemn Russia, but abstained from voting to suspend it from the Human Rights Council. Senegal, as well as South Africa, the latter being one of Africa's largest economies, have been consistent in their neutral position on the Russia-Ukraine conflict at the UN General Assembly in abstaining from on both votes. Eritrea's position is that sanctions on Russia are illegal and counterproductive, as it had been subject to such sanctions by the West for 2 decades, and they only hurt innocent people and undermine the road to peace. Back home, a very strong message about the conflict comes from Halifa Sallah, the Gambia National Assembly's head of delegation to the African, Caribbean, Pacific, European Union Joint Assemblies.
It's not that your interpretation is correct, that African states do not want to condemn Russia. We do not want to be part of your foreign policy. We do not want you to use us. We want to be free to determine for ourselves whether we condemn or not condemn and when we will condemn. So it is important for you to change your mentality, that we need to understand that we are all equal, and sometimes we are in fact more advanced than you in thinking of what should be done about the world. Thank you very much.
African Regional Bloc, ECOWAS, to which the Gambia and Senegal belong, has directly condemned Russia. Continental body African Union, meanwhile, issued a task statement calling on Russia to respect international law and the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine. Few African countries have so far individually or publicly condemned Russia for its invasion of Ukraine. Analysts have linked this to Russia's support for African government by building several military alliances, including in Libya, Mali, Sudan, the Central African Republic, and Mozambique. In October 2019, Russia's President Putin hosted many African leaders, including Gambia's Adama Barrow, at the Russia-Africa Summit. What is being played out on the international stage is a clear indication of the phrase that in diplomacy, there are no permanent friends, only permanent interests. Mahmoud Lamin Choi, QTV News.
No permanent friends, only permanent interest. Now let's take a look at what is happening beyond our borders. Now, shortly before dawn today, Israel's security forces raided the Masjid al-Aqsa compound, causing damage and what the Palestine Red Crescent Society says are over 150 injuries. Ali Sise tells us more.
Israeli police said they entered the compound, the third holiest site in Islam and revered by Jews as a Temple Mount, to break up a violent crowd that remained at the end of the morning prayers. According to Palestinian eyewitnesses, Israeli police fired rubber bullets and tear gas into the mosque compound, and that mosque staff, worshippers and even paramedics were attacked when the police stormed the site just after the morning prayer on the second Friday in Ramadan. The raid came after tensions were raised by reports that far-right Jewish groups were planning to raid the Al-Aqsa compound during the Jewish Passover holiday to perform religious rituals, including slaughtering sacrifices. The Islamic holy month of Ramadan this year coincides with Passover, a major Jewish holiday. Palestinian factions had warned that they will be on standby to defend Al-Aqsa Mosque and the city of Jerusalem. The Turkish news agency Anadolu reported that 40 Muslim scholars have responded to the threats on Al-Aqsa by calling on the Organization of the Islamic Countries, OIC, to urgently move at all levels and work with official international bodies to stop the systematic Israeli crimes and stop the desecrations. Tor Wennesland, the United Nations Special Coordinator for the Middle East peace process, tweeted that he is deeply concerned by the deteriorating security situation in Jerusalem and that provocations on the Holy Esplanade must stop now. The latest offensive on the Al-Aqsa compound comes nearly a year after Israeli forces attacked the mosque on Laylatul Qadr, known as Night of Power, following weeks of Palestinian protests in East Jerusalem over an anticipated decision of the Supreme Court of Israel on the eviction of 6 Palestinian families in Sheikh Jarrah. The 2021 incident led to over 256 Palestinian and 13 Israeli deaths in the 11 days assault on the blockade Gaza Strip. Reporting for QTV News, I am Aliou Cisse.
Also on international news, Rwanda Rwanda has struck a €120 million deal with the UK to take in some asylum seekers who arrive in Britain illegally. According to the UK government, the first batch could be flown to Rwanda within weeks. More in this report.
Under the agreement, tens of thousands of people could be resettled over the years. The Prime Minister Boris Johnson said the scheme would save countless lives and break the business model of traffickers. The Assistant High Commissioner for Protection at the United Nations Refugee Agency expressed strong opposition and concern, saying people fleeing war, conflict and persecution deserve compassion and empathy, adding that people should not be traded like commodities and transferred abroad for processing. At a joint news conference in the Rwandan capital Kigali on Thursday, UK Home Secretary Pritel Patel, whose parents fled to Britain from Uganda as refugees, said people relocated to Rwanda will be given support including up to 5 years of training, integration, accommodation and health care. The aim of the agreement, she insisted, was to improve the UK asylum system, which she said has faced humanitarian crisis and evil people smugglers making money by exploiting the system. The Rwanda scheme is part of stricter plans to reduce the number of people entering the UK via channel crossing in small boats. Last year, 28,526 people made the crossing, up from 8,404 in 2020. The number is expected to reach 1,000 a day in the next few weeks. Tom Postglove, a Conservative Member of Parliament, said Rwanda was a progressive country which had many huge strides forward in the last 3 decades. And the African country is among 2 countries in the world with a female majority parliament and has an anti-discrimination law. However, concerns are being raised about the human rights record of Rwanda and the country's president, Paul Kagame. Human Rights Watch and refugee groups have criticized the move as unethical, expensive, unsafe and contrary to international obligations. In a statement, Human Rights Watch said Rwanda has a known track record of extrajudicial killings, suspicious death in custody, unlawful or arbitrary detention, torture and abusive prosecutions. The English Channel, a narrow waterway between Britain and France, is one of the busiest shipping lines in the world. Refugees and migrants fleeing conflict, persecution and poverty in the world's poorest or war-torn countries risk the dangerous crossing, often in dinghies, unfit for the voyage and at the mercy of people smugglers, hoping to claim asylum or economic opportunities in Britain. Last November, 28 people drowned in bitterly cold waters of the coast of France after an inflatable boat carrying migrants bound for Britain capsized, one of the deadliest incidents in the English Channel in recent years. Ajibintu Drame, QTV News.
Now let's take a look at what is happening in the world of sports. Real de Banjul consolidated their lead on top of the GFF League with a 2-win over Falcons on Thursday at the Independence Stadium in Bakau. QTV's Momodu Gajaga watched the game and fastened this report.
Modulamin Demba stole the show after scoring the winner for leaders Real de Banjul late in the game against Falcons, extending their points tally to 29, 4 ahead of second place Brikama United, who play against Fortune on Saturday. Substitute Boubacar Diallo's fine run created space for running Modulamin Demba to score in the 87th minute. He removed his shirt in celebration, despite knowing he would be booked by the referee. Essa Diallo gave Real de Banjul the lead after star player Modulamin Demba was brought down in the box by Bakary Touré. Despite protesting the decision, referee Maudo Diallo pointed to the spot to give the league leaders a penalty in the 17th minute. Falcons equalized in the 39th minute with Usman Cisse's powerful header after a beautifully crafted cross from a corner kick. He was unmarked as he nodded in, giving the Real de Banjul keeper no chance. Real de Banjul coach Baye Malewada cherished his side's win, but reflected on the team's injury woes in the week.
We're happy that we came out victorious. It's been a difficult week for us, and as you can see, if you look at our bench, we only had one keeper playing in the game, and we didn't even have 18 players on the bench. So it was a difficult week with injuries and sickness. So we're happy with the result that we were able to grind out.
Falcons coach Lamin Sane said his side were punished after committing errors while acknowledging his opponent's pedigree as a strong club.
We switched off and they capitalized on it. And when you play against big teams, when you lost focus, they can punish you, and that's what happened today. Well, that's coaching for you. We will not get everything right on a particular day, and I will not defend myself, but this is the reason why we made those substitutions. We need to get fresh legs into the midfield because Real have increased the numbers in the midfield, trying different variations, and we think like if a midfielder was in the field for 60 up to 70 minutes or even more than that, and whilst Real bring fresh legs, so that's why we deem to make changes. It didn't go away today, but we learned from it. As a young coach, those trials and errors will continue till the end of the season.
Real de Banjul's win came against an exciting Falcons team, who for the greater part of the game had more possession with good passing flair. As a team playing in the GFF First Division League for the first time, they can be proud of securing 20 points after 15 games and now lie 7th in the 14-team standings. Mumudu Gajaga, QTV News.
That is all we have for you in this edition of QTV News. Thank you so much for watching and have a great weekend.